Raise your horns high and let your spirit flow. It's the classic metal wrap-up show. Feel the rush, let the loudness grow. It's the classic metal wrap-up show.
So we have Adam here, Adam Joad from Scattered Hamlet, frontman, guitarist, and avid hunter and martial artist and music geek, and a whole lot of other stuff. So you guys have a new, now it's only digital, right? The new music, is it only digital or is it physical?
For now, we're going to put out, I think around Black Friday, we're going to release a full length that has all the new original stuff that we have been releasing, plus 5 things we haven't released yet that we'll digitally release down the road. And then we're going to put out an EP also that has the covers we've been releasing.
Yes.
So it's like a cover one and then one that's the new album. We'll put them both out at the same time. And same deal. Some of them have already been released, some haven't. But so if you're a person that likes to buy like real physical media, you'll have versions of songs that you won't be able to stream yet for early, basically.
Nice. And the album, it is an album, right? We're calling it an album. I think it's 17,
it's going to be a full,
17.
it's 10, 11 songs.
It'll be 10, 11. Okay. But right now you have this, it was released, I think September 16th, I think is that right?
Yeah. Model Citizen was
Model Citizen.
Yeah. We just put that one out, and I forget, because sometimes like we've recorded these and we don't necessarily release them in the order that they've been recorded. So like sometimes I forget, like, because this one was recorded earlier than some of the other ones that we've released. So, but it was, so like it's new to everybody, but like it's been, around in my head for a little while. So it's kind of, which is cool. It was good. It was kind of we kind of shake it up. Like, there's listen, there's not a lot of variation in what we do. Like, we try to, there's a few kind of songs that we do. So like, this is like a straight burner one. So we don't want to release like 2 of those in a row. We kind of like scattered around, a little bit, just to shake it up. So
now,
want to release this.
Before we got going, I know you were having a side chat here with Evil about the Sturgis. He had mentioned, the Sturgis performance, and you had a little bit of a Dee Snider story that you were. I don't know if you mind sharing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We had after our drummer Jake was in an accident. It's kind of like one of the moments where we were deciding if we wanted to keep making music or what we were going to do. If we're going to take a break and we all kind of had one. We're like, when we decided we wanted to come back, we're like, okay, if we're going to come back though, we have to come back hard. And we decided to after many covers we tried that kind of captured the spirit of it. One that stuck was Stay Hungry, because it was just kind of captured the mood. We still want to do this, like, it was kind of like, so I thought that, you can't, it was something was like, I'm not going to write something better than this to capture the moment. So I think Dee already did that. And so we did it, and it had gotten the, I don't know who sent it to him. Somebody sent it to Dee and his people and stuff. And turned out that his guitar players, Charlie and Nick, had some prior engagements, and they hit up me and Adam Newell to see if we wanted to audition to go play, for Dee. And, I pulled my name out of the hat, because I'm not like a metal shredder like that. I can't do that stuff. And, if they want me to point and play slide and do Paul Stanley moves, I'm the guy. But, like first, the stuff that Charlie can do. Nah. Right. But anyway, but I said Adam could do it. And Adam did. He auditioned. He got the gig. He flew to Europe, played a couple shows with them. And, Dee was pretty complimentary, the cover. And when we ended up playing with him, Sturgis, this is where the story goes, I walked out of the we were walking past each other's trailers, and I had just gotten off the stage, and I was like, yeah, and I just saw Dee out there doing like jumping jacks or something. Like, dude's doing jumping jacks. He probably just ran like 4 miles. Like, he is like, he's a ball of energy, and he's out there like getting all set up, and he's Dee, and you kind of have that, little 16-year-old you is shit in your pants moment, and I was just like, hey, Dee, and he's like, hey. And I was like, and I was like, hey man, when we covered your track, you said some really nice things about us on Twitter and that version. He was like, oh yeah, you're that guy. He goes, I really like what you did with my song, and we started talking about it. Right. It was really cool. And So later on, when they were playing, we were kind of sitting like back, like he didn't allow a lot of people back behind the stage because he goes back there and gets himself together. But we were kind of standing right about where the last place you were allowed to be with you had the pass was, and he saw us standing there and he grabbed us and put us behind the amps on the other side. So we're like standing behind, I think it was Nick's stack. And it was really cool because now we're kind of like part of the show, but you can't see us. Every now and again, you can probably see my stupid head like poking out from behind an amp or something. And
right.
And one of the greatest, it was one of the best live moments I've heard. And it was when they did Burn in Hell, and it was just like, it was the most metal, like fantastic, just raw, like perfect. Just there when it got dark finally, and you got all the bikes and just the people across there, and you're gonna burn it, and they goes from soft to heavy, and it was just it was just so metal, and it was just so great. And I was telling these guys earlier that I still talk to Charlie about that, who's their guitar player. I was like, Charlie, the best, man. That was the best moment I had heard of, all that, which is Twisted Sister personally, that I was there to behold. And that I had nothing to do with, but I was there to behold it. And it was very cool. Those guys just, watching him and Nick trade leads back and forth. Right. Those guys are just, great players, respect. And it was just a cool moment. That's when you were asking me about Sturgis. I was trying to remember which one, because the one was Lita Ford and Kid Rock, and the other one was Dee Snider and then Disturbed. And, seeing, Dee in that slot. When obviously we were the openers, they did not open for us.
Right.
Just if anybody was curious.
Yeah.
But it was just really cool though. Those are both like good. That's one of the funny shows, like, because it was when you walk out on the end of the stage, they have like those big like jumbotrons where they put the artists up on it. Like that. I'm out there playing guitar, and I turn around, I'm watching myself like on the jumbotron, and it's not. Yeah, and it was kind of funny because you can see me at one point in the video. I'm like looking at it, and I'm watching my hands, and I have to like look because it's not exactly synced. And I'm like, "Am I playing this wrong right now?" I'm like, "Oh no,
you're a second or two behind."
I was like, "Okay, stop looking at this." I was just like, "Man, I look badass on that big screen." I'm like, "Am I playing this right?"
But people should go out there if they're not familiar with Scattered Hamlet. Like I had never heard of you guys. Ruben really introduced me to you guys. You guys are right up my alley. And so if you're out there, hit YouTube. 2019 Sturgis Buffalo Chip has a 45 or 50-minute set of Scattered Hamlet rocking the fuck out of it. So check that out.
Do you want to hear an amazing cancel culture story that goes with that?
Let's hear that. I'm curious.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so that video, right? We were going to play a show in South Carolina, and we get a call from the promoter, and they're like, all the opening bands dropped off because they said they can't support you and your Nazi salutes. And I'm like, what?
Like, what the heck?
So if you go to that video, they must have watched the entire video, and there's a point in it where I waved to the crowd, and they freeze framed that shot and took a screenshot of it, used it as proof that I was a Nazi, and then all the bands in South Carolina dropped off the bill. Like,
wow.
And I'm like, and I told the promoter, I'm like, listen, hang on. I was like, why don't you tell the promoters to call me and have a conversation with me before, you declare this Nazi salute that apparently that I had to go back. I couldn't even find the freeze. I mean, I saw the picture of it. I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? And it was just funny. It's like me waving. Like I was probably waving at myself on the jumbotron or something. I don't know. Like lots of things can happen in a freeze frame of an hour long concert. And I was like, I've said dumb things on stage before, but I was like, man, where did they get that? And that was the only evidence they had, but that was like full evidence. And I was like, can they talk to me? I was like, didn't you guys start the Civil War? Wasn't it happening?
I was going to say, no offense. I don't think South Carolina is the state that should start casting stones in the racist category.
Listen, much love to my friends in South Carolina, but I just thought it was funny because it was just the most ridiculous thing. So we got this show canceled because all the local support dropped off because they were not going to open for a Nazi band. They were not going to do it. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. Well, you don't have to because it turns out we're not a Nazi band. So
what's funny though? I think the last time I saw you guys at you and the guys in the band at the NAMM show, that's when you had mentioned I think you guys were like, well, what are you going to do tonight? Because, you know, there's all the various different shows happening. And I think you guys were heading to the whiskey. And that was the night that fucking Anselmo did the white power fucking thing. And I remember I was like, well, it's going to take me forever to get from Anaheim to LA. And it does. It takes you like a fucking hour.
Dude, if that's if you don't get caught in traffic.
Oh, it could, it could take more than that. Easy. It could be 2 hours, no problem.
We were at that one. That was pretty fun. That night we had a lot of fun that night too, because we were like on the side of the stage where all the main artists had to like go on to like, you know, participate in the Dime Bash. And so we were playing this game where there was like probably like 3 of us like lined up, you know. Actually, there's probably more like 7 of us. We had quite a posse with us by that point. But like anytime one of them walked to the stage, we would roast them basically. and it was funny because the more we drank, the more clever and more brave we were. And and then our posse kept getting bigger. Like it started with okay, now you got me talking. It's Tommy Victor. He was walking on stage.
Right.
Tommy had seen us earlier in the day. We were talking to him. So when he was walking up on stage, I was like, "Oh shit, it's Tommy Victor. You're like my 3rd favorite guitar player from Danzig." And he was like, "Man, fuck you." And he was so funny. He's like, "Man, fuck you guys." And he went on stage and crushed. He's great, you know. And then when he was coming down, he was like, "You know what?" And he has that New York accent. He's like, I'm going to stand right here with you guys and mess with everybody. We're like, okay, we just got cred in our posse. Now we have Tommy, who's also like kind of ripping on people coming on stage. And it was funny that the best one, there are 2 funny ones from that night without going into the whole Phil thing. But Dave Grohl, he had like a giant posse with him. Like he had like this, and he had to walk through all of us. So like when he gets up to me, I just looked at him and I was like, "Ooh, I'm in Nirvana, so I have a posse of like 100 people." And he stopped dead and turned around and looked at me. I was like, "Oh shit, this is the moment where Dave Grohl's just going to punch me in the face, and I'm going to take it because I totally deserve whatever he dishes out." And he just got that big Dave Grohl grin and put his hand on my shoulder and was like, "Dude, I like you guys. You're funny." He's like, "This is what's happening,"
and that's cool, man. He has a sense of humor, you know.
And he was cracking up, gave me a hug, walked on stage, crushed it. But the other funny one from that was when Zach Wilde came through, right? And his posse, crickets. Those guys all walk through and like they get up on stage, and I'm like, "Oh, what? Nobody has the courage to fuck with these guys." And it was like, no, none of us did. It was like complete crickets. We're all just like looking around waiting for one person. It was like nobody did. So anyway, that was my 2 funny ones from that Dime Bash.
Wow. That's awesome.
And obviously, that was some pretty funny. So Ruben, if you'd have went up with us, you could have been in our posse just harassing.
Well, that would have been fun. I would have probably been the guy that got punched in the face by Dave Grohl, though. But
he was so, you know, we just had it was just kind of like saying, like, you know, we weren't being like, you know, I mean, we were being belligerent. It was like funny though, like you can tell, like, you know, I mean, we're just really fans of all these people, you know, so it was kind of. But you know, we're just right on the tier enough where we're allowed to hang out there. You know, like,
Your passes were legit.
Yeah, they were. Good.
Yeah. We had legit. We were legit enough to be standing right there. But no, it was really. And that night, that was a good night because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mothership and Mike Vallely's band Revolution Mother played.
Yeah,
and they both were.
Yeah, and Mothership was from Texas. I remember seeing them here a few times.
We had Kelly and his brother. You know, great band, man. You know, they're starting to do stuff again. So, you know, they should check them out. And Revolution Mother, you know, of course, Mikey B was singing Black Flag before.
Right.
Now Black Flag is like Greg Ginn and like 3 kids. It's really weird looking.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah, I saw some video of that.
What's more
senior citizen with some 18-year-olds?
I'm curious, you know, since we're talking punk here, what's more bizarre, like that Black Flag or the Sex Pistols moving on without Johnny? I mean, he's still alive.
Yeah, there's a lot of like punk's so weird now because it's so I don't know, it's like upside down, you know, like, well, the world's upside down, you know, but like what qualifies as like punk rebellion is almost like mainstream at this point, you know, like and I'm not making a comment about that either way, but it's just a little weird, you know, like, because kind of like the whole anti-establishment thing is kind of very establishment now. So I don't really know how that plays into it, you know, like, because punk rock was, and I'm old, so I'm gonna be an old head, was more like rebellious and stuff before it became kind of,
Green Day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's, listen, Billy Joe's a tremendous songwriter, and I go, he gets really upset when people don't call him punk, but
Mhm.
I haven't considered. I mean, maybe when they were playing Gilman Street, but I mean, like they're
No, I'll be on. No.
like,
I was there in the
he's like,
90s. I'm
okay,
from
go
the
on.
Bay Area.
Okay.
I'm from the Bay Area. I was there in the 90s. Even
You can
then,
say
we
it,
considered them pop. They were pop
Pop.
bullshit.
Yeah,
They were never punk.
and they're like,
Rancid was punk.
dude, Rancid is like,
Yeah.
listen, those are on my, like, I'll stand by this statement that I believe there hasn't been a better punk album from top to bottom since Out Come the Wolves. I think they set the bar. That's like, to me, like, that's like the street punk from that era, like kind of like where Appetite for Destruction sits for hard rock. I put an Out Come the Wolves, and Rancid purists could say other Rancid albums, and I understand their position, but I'm talking in terms of like cultural impact, top to bottom, and I still sit down here and try to figure out like what the hell Matt's doing on bass, like, because I've been playing a lot of our bass, behind in our recordings, and like, so I've been going back and listening. And sometimes I'm just like, what? I watch his videos, I'm like, what the hell is he doing there? Like, and it's just, those guys are on another planet. I'm a big fan of them. I like the Op Ivy stuff, but
they just had a lot more street cred. The Green Day and the Offspring were known as like the rich kids who came down to Berkeley and Oakland to hang out and try to be cool.
And listen, and the Offspring, I think, are great songwriters too. Those guys, I would see them when I was surfing down on Huntington Beach. They were super kind, nice people. Like, those, and again, this isn't like any slam on anything. It's just, when I classify music, I mean, to me, like at this stage in the game, it's like, Green Day is an arena rock band at this point. They're not, like it's not like a punk band, to me.
And they're both very quality. I call them pop rock. That's really what they are. They're radio friendly pop rock. And there's no knock on that. I'm just saying, if you're in the Bay Area, a lot of kids came from Marin or South Bay or wherever, and they would end up in the Berkeley, Oakland area to hang out and be cool. And that's where the clubs are to play music. There's nothing wrong with that. All the bands wanted to get to those clubs because those are the clubs that were known. And but I mean, like, I had the cookie when it came out, and I was like, God, these guys are trying pretty hard. I just, I just compared to like, go see some Dead Kennedys or something. I'm just saying, if you're in the Bay Area, there's other. Jello Biafra's doing shows in San Francisco all the time. You can see some real punk rock.
Yeah, that's kind of like when I'm thinking of the pantheon of like a style of music, like when that's what I'm talking about. Or I even go through this with what passes for hardcore. Like I'll meet like kids and really cool, like kind of metal bands are like, we're in a hardcore band. I'm like, oh, like Agnostic Front. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, then we're probably having different definitions of what hardcore is. Like you said, you were up at Gilman Street and stuff. I played at like CBGB, ABC No Rio, like all the, the punk places before I
New York,
made SH, like, and, I was, in punk bands. So we were playing every dirty punk collective on the East Coast, so I don't know if that qualifies me for anything, but I have seen a lot of punk bands, whatever that.
And when you're from the Bay Area and Sacramento, NorCal in general has a very wide ranging music scene. So in those days, you could be at one show and be like, oh, here's Green Day over here, and then 2 weeks later, I'm at the Deftones over here, and then 3 weeks later, I'm seeing Cake over here, and I'm seeing there's just a wide variety of music, and it has really no. And some of these bands would play shows together back in those days. People would be like, looking now, you're like, how do those three bands end up on the same bill? They're nothing at all similar to each other, it gave you variety. It exposed you to other music, because I was at the time going to see Deftones shows, and I'd see these other bands like Cake, and I'd be like, I would never listen to Cake, but this guy blowing the trumpet's kind of cool, and their minimalist style is kind of catchy, whatever they're doing. So but I was going to ask you, we're discussing some news notes, and you're obviously familiar with D and Twisted Sister, so they're reuniting next year. What do you think about Mendoza on the outs? I was just going to bring up, JJ said recently that bands are like marriages, and apparently they're divorced from the animal. The animals got divorced.
But wait, before he tackles that one, before that, what do you think of these bands being wishy-washy with coming back? I mean, I was going to bring up Motley too, because Motley, went away in 2015 and then came back, and then they ditched Mick Mars, and now they have a guy that's kind of filling the role that that's really overqualified for the band, but doesn't fit
You
well.
think
But
that's like what John 5 is like. I laughed when he joined like White Zombie. It's like bringing a bazooka to a knife fight, you know, like he's so fucking good. Like I
Right.
mean, like he's so good. Like he's on another planet good, and it's really funny. Like you know, that'd be. We saw it happen a lot, like in the '80s, you know, where everybody wanted to have like the hottest like gunslinger, you know, like when you know, look how many bands like. I was thinking like when Alcatraz had like Ingve and then Steve Vai, you know, like it's like you want the like these guys that are so good and they're great. I just saw Steve Vai maybe a year or two ago, and he's he's such a good show. You know, even if you're not a guitar nerd, like it's just a good show. But yeah, I don't know, you know. And here's another thing. I kind of think of it with like okay, like take you said Twisted Sister. I'll do another one. I'll do Cinderella. Okay, Tom Kiefer. I'm a huge Tom Kiefer fan. Tom Kiefer's solo band is probably a lot more talented than Cinderella. Let's just they have my man Tony Higbee is playing guitar for them. I talked to him in Nashville, like at the guitar, like we bullshit and man, that guy can, and, you know, he plays for Damon Johnson, a lot of people. Like these guys are like
Brother Kane,
so good, you know. And so good that like he's so good that Tom actually lets him play leads during the set. You know, Tom and Cinderella, like he's like, wait a minute, I'll get off the piano for a second, and then I'm going to play the lead too. I'm going to do everything. And this is no diss on Cinderella. I love all their albums. But like, I wonder about that, you know, like, cause like these guys that have surrounded themselves now, I know sometimes that like super musicianship doesn't necessarily equate into like bringing the music alive in a way. Cause sometimes there's just something about the sum of the 4 or 5 parts that makes it magical. You know, like it's not necessarily bringing the best people to the,
can I say something that's weird for me with Cinderella and Tom Kiefer?
Yeah.
When I see the Tom Kiefer band, it lacks the Cinderella showmanship. When I saw Cinderella with the big purple thing and the fog machines and all the lights and they came out, it was like it had a whole different like I don't know pizzazz to it. Regardless if the music was it was like thinner, just him and LeBar, just Eric. They're solid, but it wasn't all full. And I don't know. So that I wish there was a way Tom could merge both. That would be my dream. Have the better band with the lights and the stuff with the Cinderella production. Yeah.
Well, you kind of saw where he was headed, like musically in his head when they got like the Heartbreak Station and stuff. You're like, okay, this guy, you know, could make a freaking a Southern rock album like the Black Crowes or something if he wanted to. You know, like and it was, you know, he just happened to come out at a time, you know, and where you know, they were, you know, they had to do that stuff to get signed at that era.
Get the libel,
you know, and it was, but there's something, but like, you're right though. There's something magical about that too. Like there's something, you know, like sometimes that, you know, even if you have the best like solo band in the world, it's just not quite the same. And, yeah, I don't know. You know, it's kind of.
It makes me wonder: would we feel that after we see Twisted Sister without Animal? Will there be a lacking because AJ and Animal are not there? And you're kind of like, well, who are these other two guys? Right. What are they doing? You know, that's what I'm wondering. You know? I feel bad for those guys. They may be quality musicians, but they're in a spot where it's like I got to fill shoes of a guy who's like a legendary character.
And legend. And sometimes it's not just being able to. You know, you could just do something a certain way that only that person can do. You know, like it's. You know, there was some, take Kiss, for example, right? You know, like, there's nobody that's going to, Tommy Thayer's amazing. Like, that dude's, but there's some magic, man. When you go back to, like, the Midnight Special from, like, 1973 or so, and you watch them do, I think it's 73, or 73 or 75, but you watch them do Black Diamond with the original cast of those guys, and they're all hitting it and they're on. I'm like, you can make fun of Kiss, and you shouldn't. I'll argue with you, but you can. But when you watch like that performance, like those guys were on, like, and that, you know, they bring the drums out of the sky. This is before they even had a lot of money for all their, you know, awesome Kissness. But you know, it's there's something cool about that. You know, like that, just those, you know, that squad of people and what they did. Iggy and the Stooges, you know, it's all those guys versus, you know, watching him with his solo act. I like it all, but it's just different. You know, so I don't know. We could pontificate about this, you know, and I don't know. It's my big word for
I just wonder what Animal did to get divorced. The poor.
You know what?
And I should say
Money.
this as a bass player.
Probably money,
Animal's
right?
kind of underrated because if you listen to Twisted Sister's music, Animal has a very hand style, spatter style of bass playing that not a lot of guys can do, like Steve Harris's and a few others, but maybe Billy Sheehan. But I'm just saying, like, that's not whoever's playing that bass gig better be ready to buckle down and learn some shit because the Animal wasn't fucking around with them bass lines.
No, and sometimes bass is just about like being it. You know, we did that. It was fun. We did the cover of Thin Lizzy's Cowboy song, and one of the things when I was working on the bass line of it, you know, I learned. I listened to it by ear, came up with the whole bass line. Then I started watching Phil Lynott do it, and I realized that number one, Phil's playing with a pick, which you know I was playing with my fingers, and number two is Phil was singing when he was playing, so he plays everything in the box as opposed to where I would play it, you know, on one of our albums. So then it was like kind of one of those things where, well, you know, this is an iconic bass player. When I approach this, am I going to do it his way or am I going to do it the way that we would do it? So I ended up like kind of blending a hybrid of it, you know, because and it was kind of fun, but it was neat to do that because I like to just watch live videos of Thin Lizzy, you know, to just see how he's doing. I'm like, oh wow, he's right here doing it because that makes sense why he's singing, you know, and I don't know how the hell he's singing and playing at the same time because he's Phil Lynott. Like that's another. Like that guy's on another
He's
planet.
like right there with Glenn Hughes and Jack Bruce and these guys who like, how could their brain do one thing and their hands are doing something else and they just act like it's no big deal. I got this. I'll do this in my sleep. And I'm like,
and then he has that voice where, and he's singing like, you know, he's like fucking Fergie and Jesus.
And putting on a good show. Like always a showman. I mean, always interact with the crowd.
He's got
doing
Steve Harris where they're going to shoot me with
the mirror bass, blinding you with it while he's playing and stuff. Yeah.
I love it all, man. I love all that stuff. It's like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, but that's what I think of with those bands. And now from musicians who's had a band that was supposed to be a band that ended up just being me with a million different members over the years. You know, we're like the social distortion of like you know, hillbilly rock or whatever.
Right.
But that's just the way it falls down. You know, like life happens. And like, listen, there's some people that I still talk to every day that I absolutely adore, and they're my good friends, and I don't want to play with them anymore. You know, like if you told me I had to, you know, even if they were necessarily the most qualified, you know, like there's something about when you've I don't want to say evolve, but everybody evolves. You've moved, you know, like, and you're kind of in a different spot than you were here. It would be hard to jump back to another spot, you know, and a lot of those things that, you know, might have irritated you about each other, you know, would probably be a lot like bigger now, you know, or bigger. And so you never know what the dynamics are, you know, with that kind of stuff. And, you know,
and that's exactly why no matter, because as you know, the chemistry once you're in the music room may be great. And you're like, damn, that's really good. But then when we get out here, I have to hang out with this guy and go on the road and stay in a hotel room and be in a what? And that's where a guy like Ace is not going to end up back in Kiss ever because Steve and Paul are like, we're not dealing with this.
No,
this is not happening.
Especially in this era, like, you don't listen, there's so, you know, everybody's competing for like scraps, you know, like there's no major labels pushing like hard rock or metal bands. So you can't have wild cards in your band. There's going to be no one that's going to follow around like a, you know, someone that's fallen down and on heroin or too drunk to go on stage. They're just going to replace you. Like we don't live in that era anymore. And you know, coming in the LA music scene, there were still a lot of people that thought it was, you know, 1989 and they were going to be like Guns N' Roses and they had all the drinking and partying down. None of the other Guns N' Roses down. Yeah, all the things that made them awesome. We don't have that. We look cool and we can drink a lot. And you know, I guess if that's your goal, but like nobody's gonna take that on. You know, you're gonna have a lot of trouble, you know, finding, you know, any type of support or things like that, you know, with that sort of attitude, because again, it's about, you know, like you said, it's about money, you know, and that's not, you know, when I have younger people that, you know, we have a solid unit now. We've been, you know, that way for a while, but you know, when younger people like want to audition and stuff, you know, like I have to explain to them, you know, if they haven't been on tour and stuff, you know, what it's not going to be, you know, like they think it's going to be something very different. And it might have been if you were just starting in your own band, but we're already here and we're doing this, and this is how the organization runs. So I was like, you're not gonna see me. Like they call it Joading. I was like, you'll see me at sound check, you'll see me at the hotel. The hours in between, I was like, you're not gonna see me until they text me and I get ready to go on stage. We kind of all go into our own like little worlds, and it's not and it's good and bad. It's not the same way that it was, like when I got in my first van with my buddies and we were a punk band, and that was cool. But that's not, I'm sure Rancid, it's not like when they got in that car for Op Ivy and drove across the country, if you tour. They're like, nah, that's not how it's going to be. That's why I wonder, that's what cracks me up with like Greg Ginn and like the three kids. It's like, how does this work? Like, does he have like,
well, they're cheap. They play for $25 and a sub sandwich. Right. So he's like, hey, you're in the band. Can you play those three power chords good? Let's do this.
I thought about this. I mean, does he pay him in Amazon cards or something? I mean, what the fuck?
And if you think about it, I think I would take the Sex Pistols over Greg Ginn because they got 3 out of 4. And the video I saw, the Frank Carter guy, he's not trying to be Johnny Rotten. He's kind of bringing his own thing to it, but it still sounds like the Sex Pistols to me. It still has that nasty punk, right? My 2 or 3 minutes is going to just shit all over you real quick here. Here we go.
Right. I saw my buddy plays. He took over for DH in the new Dead Kennedys, which doesn't have Jello Biafra, and I've seen them a few times. And listen, I have fun going there, getting in a circle pit and singing, Pol Pot, and it's a lot of fun. It's a little different, the guy's doing his own thing with it. Would I rather see Jello there? Of course, but I could also having been in a room with Jello, like behind the scenes somewhere, I was like, I don't know if I'd want to be in a van with him all day. It's like because what makes him awesome on stage is probably
I see him from the front row and I go, I'm getting enough of him right now. I don't know if I want to be around this guy much more when he's on the stage singing these songs, throwing shit at me, fucking acting like a maniac, getting his shirt off at 60 years old, and he was doing the belly roll across the stage, and I was like, dude, you're like old. How fat you are? What are you doing? But man, there's definitely a screw. You can see there's a screw loose in this individual.
And I think that makes for great frontmen in many situations. It's like D took a lot of flack for this. One time, I had to like jump in on this. Like, I very seldom jump in on conversations on social media. D said something, and people were calling it controversial. This was many years back, but it was like he was talking about the difference between a frontman and a singer, and D was like saying he happens to be both. I would agree. I think all of us would agree with that statement. Yeah. But he said there's also people that are singers that are not frontmen. And then there's people that are frontmen that are not singers. And people are all like yelling at him and stuff. I'm like, what? That's just common knowledge. Like, I mean, that's just we could point out people. Some of my favorite frontmen aren't very good singers. And, there's some people that are great singers that maybe they got better as frontmen over the years, or women, or maybe they never did, and they're just really good singers. You could. Bruce Dickinson is a good frontman and singer. There's some people that have both.
Where would you put David Lee Roth? I'm curious. Was he ever a good singer? I mean,
what's funny? His octave range is really good, but like to call Dave a good singer, Dave's a front man first and foremost, right? Like, and that's my favorite era of Van Halen. Even though I'll tell Sean 5150s, that's our other guitar player. I tell him 5150s better just because I like to see him freak out and like kick things, and he gets very angry. So I'll be like, man, when they did 5150, they really hit their stride. He's just like, no. He's like, that came out, but so David Lee Roth can sing, but he sings in David Lee Roth way. So I wouldn't say he's a traditional singer. He's David Lee Roth. He's like his own.
He's like a performer, right? I mean, he's a performer. Is what he is. He's well rounded. I mean, he does all that weird shit.
And once you see him live, you realize that he really kind of does take the vocals and kind of go, I'm doing this.
But I think I've said this before. I mean, I never saw. Didn't see him with Van Halen pre-84, right? I saw him when they reunited, but in 86, I mean, that was probably prime David Lee Roth with that band. He had Sheehan, he had Bissonette. It was just like, fuck. Did Van Halen did
that stuff sounded more Van Halen than Van Halen did at that
right. And to see that with Yeah, and he had Cinderella opening, so it was like, holy shit! I mean, you can't go wrong. You know, you see the Eat 'em and Smile lineup, and Cinderella supporting. I think Cinderella did all but one song off of Night Songs, so the whole
Oh,
thing
really?
was fucking great.
That's awesome.
But you know, from there forward, then you had the Skyscraper. There was a little bit of of a drop off. By the time
Yeah.
a little ain't enough, it was kind of apparent. So those were the three
You know,
tours that I saw with Roth as solo. I haven't seen him since, but just watching these videos, and then
Yeah.
saw him fast forward to them reuniting with Roth and Van Halen and booting Michael Anthony out. I mean, it was just kind of like, oh boy, it was anticlimactic. It was good to see them together, but the fact that they didn't have Michael Anthony in there, and they were piping in his vocals, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? I mean, it was
Yeah, again, weird. Some of that stuff, some of those decisions are we're not privy to what's going on behind the scenes. But then at the same time, when you get big enough, you have a lot of yes men and yes women around you. Like, you don't have like that one person to be like, hey bro, that's a bad idea. And a lot of people like will get rid of people that tell them it's a bad idea for people that'll tell them all their ideas are good. And I don't care who you are, you're gonna have bad ideas. Like, some of them are, like not every idea sticks, and anybody who tells you it does is lying. I've got files of bad riffs on here that I haven't done anything with. And I'll be like, one day I'll write it. I'll be like, tomorrow I'm going to come back down. This is going to be an awesome song. And then I go back down and listen. I was like, yeah, that's dog shit. I don't know what to do with it, and we even do it, like we laugh about it. Like, we have an idea to do on stage, and like, we'll do it. And sometimes it'll be like a complete, like, cricket disaster, we're not, and then we have to laugh about it and regroup and not do that again. But
yeah.
If you have the courage to keep doing it, I don't know.
but
sometimes you have to experiment to find out.
Yeah.
You throw it out there.
But if you remember with that whole Van Halen, they reunited, booted Michael Anthony out. I think the bad decision in general was just remember they took Michael Anthony off the artwork and replaced him with Wolfie. I mean, I was just like, what the fuck?
Okay, but let's go on the record. Some of this has nothing to do with Roth. This is Ed.
Right.
Ed doing Ed stuff.
Yeah.
And during that period, there was a period where we all know, because Craig Gass told the story, that Ed's on meth and is doing crazy shit.
Right.
And Ed Gass is trying to live with this dude, and this guy is fucking out there smoking some shit, doing some rando shit in the middle of the night that makes no sense, texting people, calling people drunk at 4 a.m, telling them they got to be there in the studio in 5 minutes. Just crazy shit. So what I'm saying is, I think that was kind of during that period. There's a period there where these weird things start happening in the Van Halen camp, and I think some of that has to do with Ed being on benders, not having it. I don't think Roth probably had that much, if any, say in what was going on at all.
Probably a contractor.
And their management, if I'm not mistaken, was Irving Azoff, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't think that dude is even I mean, he's got 50 bands he manages. He's not answering the phones. He's got handler guys for each of these bands. How many of those people are going to look at David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen and go, you shouldn't do that.
Well,
that's not a bad idea. No one's doing that.
Yeah, they want their 15% of what they're going to do.
They want these guys on tour no matter what they got to do. Pipe in vocals, make a Michael Anthony hologram over there. We're getting these motherfuckers on stage for this tour for these millions.
So out of these bands, like, I mean, you think of the dysfunction. Who's most dysfunctional here? Was it Van Halen? Was it Motley? Is it Journey or Rat?
Okay.
I mean,
you're throwing some good options.
You got 4. There's probably a 5th one floating around out there that isn't in my brainwaves.
I just want to go on the record real quick, though, guys. Hold on. On the record, though, there's one band that was more dysfunctional but somehow stayed together. And explain this to me: the Ramones.
Oh yeah.
How the fuck
that's right.
do these guys who are completely polar opposites in every way of life and politics, living, everything they do, are in a van riding together, shoulder to shoulder, gig to gig? I'm all, for like 40 years, you want to reach across the van seat and strangle that fucking guy, and you didn't do it? How did they manage that? So go ahead.
Right.
No, I have a buddy, and he's since passed away, and I'm going to tell a story because he would probably laugh at this story. His name's Scott Koenig, and Scott was a manager for many bands. And Scott and I had known each other from just being around LA. We were both jiu-jitsu fans, and we had similar friends. So one time he and I, we were both backstage when Anthrax got Dan Nelson to play one of the 2 shows he played, right, or one of the 2 or 3 shows, and they were opening for Iron Maiden, and Lauren Harris was the first band. So we're backstage, and I'm talking to Dan's brother Scott, and Scott's from New York. He's in New York, so he's known those guys since they were, since he had a record store there, like when they were going around handing out leaflets when like Neil Turbin was death riding and shit,
Yeah.
And they came back, and there was Scott can kick me in the balls if he sees me for telling this story, but there was a terrible fight. I don't even know what the fight was about, and I thought Dan did a great job. They opened with Indians, dude, sang Indians and open, and I mean, come on, that was not like a John Bush thing, and no disrespect to John, but that's not what John did. And you got this guy Dan that he opened with Indians, and I was like, man, that's a statement. I thought that's a good statement of him being who he was, and I was talking to them, and I don't know, a huge fight broke out. Like they were just arguing and they're screaming. It was like the most thing, and I was like, they were having an argument. Scott came out, and I was like, I thought Dan did pretty good. And he was like, you should go tell him that. And I was like, okay. So I told Dan, and I talked to him for a little bit. I was talking to his brother and his family. They came out for the show. And then I went over, was talking to my friend Scott. And Scott was watching this whole thing unfold. And he looks at me and he goes, that's why I never would manage these guys. I was like, oh, so this must be. So that's my Scott.
I'm curious.
Whatever chaos.
I'm curious if you've seen the video. I don't know. Evil shared it with me, but it's like the 2-hour long Billy Milano interview that he did, where he just shits on Scott and Charlie. I mean, this guy he's fucking resentful. Oh my god.
It's charred earth. He is like just destroying them through the entire interview, calling Charlene Benante because she's such a chick and she dresses like a chick and acts like a chick, and he said that Scott Ian's on the tour bus and he's got lines of fans outside wanting an autograph or a photo, and he's eating a PB&J screaming, I'm too busy. Can
you imagine?
Billy Milano, I spent maybe 20 minutes with Billy one time. We were playing in Austin at this little place, and we had just sound checked, and the bar was open. And I'm sitting at the bar, and I'm talking to the bartender, and because we played there before, and there's a guy at the end of the bar in a cowboy hat, right? And I'm like, looking across the bar, I'm like, if I didn't know better, I would think that was Billy Milano in a cowboy hat. So I asked the bartender, I was like, can I ask you a random question? And he's like, yeah. I was like, is that Billy Milano at the end of the bar with a cowboy hat on? And the bartender, he looks at me and he goes, please go tell him that you recognized him. And I was like, okay. So I walked over and I was like, Sergeant D. And he looked at me and was like, hey, we just started fucking talking about MOD and SOD and all this kind of shit. And I let it, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I let it slip that at the time we were there, we still shared a rehearsal space with Scott. Like Scott still had his amps at one of our places. And I was like, yeah, I said, I've got I said, I see Scott every now and again. He carries my things. I didn't realize that the magnitude of bad blood, this was many years ago, but it was like that let loose quite a tirade of all these things that he was going. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. I'm learning a lot. I'm like, this is, yeah. And he was just bam, 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 going off. And I was like, I remember I saw Scott not too long ago after that. I was like, Scott, I ran into Billy in Austin. I was like, that guy hates you. Well, and it was just a funny, just one of those random experiences. I'm like, there's 2 people at the bar, and one is Billy Milano and one is the bartender and me. It was just kind of.
And Billy seems like the kind of guy that once you get him going, he's going to tell you all kinds of shit. He's an open book.
Yeah, he didn't know me from fucking anybody. And then, of course, I let the Scott Ian thing, me being my stupid, naive ass, I didn't figure there was still bad blood from, I mean, this 2015 or something, I mean, it's been a minute since the last SOD album, And that's why it was funny when I saw that same interview and I was like, oh, wow, this kind of sounds like a similar tirade that I heard, in a lot, more abbreviated version of it with, the same frankness though. I was like, no, he didn't hold anything back. He's not,
No.
I was like, hey, you got to give the guy credit for being, saying what he wants to,
I know we were talking about the scab versions of bands, but Scott's assembled like an SOD lineup. I mean, he's got who's he got? Josta singing, I think, and his kid on drums, and he's got Danny
and Lil
back
Kerr
in
on
the band.
bass.
Yeah. So I mean,
threw him a bag of weed.
Yeah, probably. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I don't know that I'm liking that. I mean, I don't know that I'd see it.
Yeah, you know what? It's like Scott's always been incredibly kind to me, and I root for the stuff he does. But I, personally, like to me, the really thing that made that band a lot different was that they got a singer, a front man. Go ahead, singer, front man. You got a front man like Billy, who's not a singer. He is a front man, and it's his pro wrestling Billy Milano-ness that makes SOD work to me. And I love Jamie Josta. I think Jamie, I watched him crush at the Golden God Medal Awards, and man,
Raise your horns high.